Hello, my name is Luis Almeida. I'm a student and teacher regarding the ideas of Spinoza and Gurdjieff. Today's topic is about Spinoza and Jesus. What are the similarities? What do they have in common? Both believe that there was a greater potential in man. Of course, Jesus spoke in parables, and Spinoza spoke it communicated his ideas in his ethics. Now, you may have the ethics. This is what it looks like. You can get it on Amazon.com. And there are 5 parts to the ethics. One is about God and the mind and the emotions and human freedom and human bondage. But regarding the similarities, both Jesus and Spinoza believe that man, again, had a greater potential. They both had ideas that would rise man above his lower nature. And what is the lower nature? His instincts, his survival, his desire to survive, and living from his ego personality state. Now, of course, Jesus and Spinoza did not talk about the ego. But you have, Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung. They both share some ideas about the ego. Very good, very excellent description of man's attachment to his identity, to a identity. I think Carl Jung talked about the ego as the shadow, and I understand that to be true. But the commonality between Spinoza and Jesus is this. Both live in a hostile environment. Jesus, of course, his environment was Roman occupation, suppression, and oppression. There was a lot of diseases. People were uneducated, a lot of poverty. But yet, he was communicating ideas through parables that were different than what the priests and the rabbis in the synagogue were communicating. Most religion, I would say all religion, are fear-oriented. So there's an old saying, if you're able to administer fear, you control the people. Now, however, in the parables, very few people understand these parables. I'll give you an example. In Matthew, he talks about you cannot serve 2 masters. What does he mean? Well, a master, he says that you cannot serve God and mammon. What is mammon? Well, it could be anything. It could be your treasure. He says also another parable, treasures in heaven. Where your treasure is, there will be your heart also. So let's take a look at both of these. The idea you cannot serve 2 masters, and meaning that the thing that you want or say desire, you can become a master of. You can become that thing. For instance, Gurdjieff talks about become a master of oneself. And the idea of mastering something, you might be an athlete or a doctor or attorney. You have mastered their works. So, however, to master, become an attorney, and that is what you want, or you want to become wealthy, or you want to just be oriented towards family, and family is good, no question about that. But if that is your life, that is your master, you have no room for God. And so, however, if you have room for God first, then you can have these other things also. But interesting thing about Spinoza, so he also had an idea that he wanted to rise man from his lower nature to his higher nature. What does that mean? The lower nature, again, is the ego nature. It just wants what it wants. It believes in free will. Now, talk about free will for a moment. There are 2 individuals that I know, and there are many others who think the same way, but Robert Sapolsky, He believed that there's no free will. Now, he studied apes and animals, and he realized through his study that we do not have free will. But he doesn't really explain it. What if we don't have free will? What do we have? Well, Spinoza explains that very well in his Ethics. Now, prior to the Ethics, there's a part called the improvement of our understanding. Now, we must understand what Spinoza and Jesus is communicating. Now, the understanding is different from memorization. There's a great difference. IQ is measured from anywhere from low IQ, from 60, 70 to 230. I think Einstein had an IQ of 130. That's a genius level, but there are some individuals that are higher. But even though you have a high IQ, does that help you understand Spinoza's ethics or what Jesus was communicating? Now, the idea of treasures in heaven, that's another parable. He says, where your treasure is, there will be your heart also. What does that mean? A treasure can be riches, fame, or the pleasures of the senses, or being an attorney, a doctor, or a business person. And that is where your heart and your treasure is. And so, again, it's evident that people who put all their heart and the treasures that they desire are not really fulfilled. They might be momentarily happy, however, it isn't last. Again, under the occupation of the Roman Empire, Jesus was communicating ideas that he said wanted to lift human nature. In spite of the environment, in spite of the poverty, the disease. And he was saying things that were different from what the rabbis and the priests were saying in the temple, in the synagogues. In the synagogues, they read the Torah, and word for word, the Ten Commandments, follow dogmatically. And one of the things that Jesus, when he was invited to speak in the temple, he said something like this: you're reading the Torah word for word, and you don't understand the spirit of the law that it's communicating. Jesus, again, had a different voice, and many follow him because his voice had such peacefulness, clarity, and he talked about the kingdom of heaven within. What does that mean? The kingdom of heaven within is the mind. When your mind is clear, it's in a heavenly state of being. When your mind is clear and you are improving your understanding and you understand your emotions, you understand yourself, as Socrates would say, the greatest knowledge is knowing thyself. So Spinoza and Jesus, the commonality is they wanted to lift man from his ego, lower nature, to a higher nature of peace and loving and compassion. It was said that Spinoza, that he was a man, a gentleman. He lived his ideas. His ideas is not theoretical. It's to be applied. It's taken me over 50 years to be able to communicate Spinoza. I have mastered his ethics. I wrote a book, How to Understand His Ethics. I use my students. I've had many students. And someone was with me for 5 years, 3 years, or a month. But they gained something. Their life were changed. What was changed? Their thinking. You must understand how to improve your thinking, the power of understanding your nature, your emotions. So this is a book, again, case studies of students, how they learn about Spinoza and Gurdjieff, how to apply their ideas to their life. And it's so important to learn how to journal. Now, right now, the climate we're in, the politics, the idea of our democracy is being dismantled by this man called Trump, who's the president. Some of you may like him, some of you don't. But I would say that it's interesting that during Spinoza's time, the 17th century, There were the monarch, and the religious groups were in control of politics and control the people. Again, where you are able to instill fear, you control the people. So they dominated and controlled the populace. And Spinoza came up on an idea. He wanted to raise the consciousness of the populace to help them rationalize and begin to realize that they can overcome their fear and began to apply reason, rational thinking. And he wrote a book, and this is a book, it's called the Theological Political Treatise. Now, in this book, he explains that the Bible is not the work of God, but the work of man. The Bible is the work of man, not of God. And his life was threatened. His books were banned. Why? Because the power of the religious groups and the monarch didn't want to give up their power. They did not want people to have power of understanding, of coming to clarity, to come to rational thinking. Likewise, Jesus, his parables, if you understand them, helps you free yourself from the environment that you grew up in, from your pain and suffering. Now, again, there's another book I recommend, is my teacher's book. My teacher wrote, is called How to Solve Life's Problems. He uses the teachings of Spinoza and Gurdjieff. These ideas in my book and my teacher's book will help you understand Gurdjieff and Spinoza to a good degree, because I give you case studies and examples. Because if you try to read Spinoza yourself, it's impossible. I had a teacher. I can help you. I have mastered his work, and also I have mastered Gurdjieff's In Search of the Miraculous. I would say you don't need anything else with Gurdjieff, but Gurdjieff gives us some real distinct ideas. He said that we are not a master of ourselves. It's possible to become a master of oneself, and that we are asleep. And the idea is to awaken. So let's wake up. Let's how to learn about our emotions, because with the journaling process, you write the events that trigger your emotions. And that way you become free of them. But you will need help. My books will help you, or you can call me directly. I hope to hear from you.